The Beyond the Fame podcast is fed by Lido Pizza. Lido Pizza never cuts corners. For menu and locations, visit LidoPizza.com. This month's programming is sponsored by Signature Theater, presenting the DC premiere of the untitled, unauthorized Hunter S. Thompson musical. Follow the godfather of gonzo journalism as he barrels through American history in this critically acclaimed new rock musical now through July 13th. Buy tickets now at sigtheater.org. And of course, this podcast would not be possible without our longtime title sponsor, the Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races in West Virginia. Upcoming featured entertainment includes Kevin James adding a second show June 7th and Band of Horses June 14th. Details and tickets at HollywoodCasinoCharlestown.com. Must be 21 to enter the casino floor and attend a show. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Welcome to the newest episode of Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. I'm your host, Jason Fraley, picking the brains of the top filmmakers, musicians, and artists of our time. Polka-dotted blues legend Buddy Guy performs live at Wolf Trap in Vienna, Virginia on June 21st. He called in to discuss his journey from cutting his teeth with Muddy Waters to hosting a jam session with Stevie Ray Vaughan at his own blues club. Not to mention racking up 8 Grammy Awards and being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame by Eric Clapton and B.B. King. Hey, Buddy Guy. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
No problem, man. Anything to help the blues a little bit, because blues is being treated like a stepchild now. You know, your big stations don't know how to play anybody's blues anymore. You know, I don't know what happened. I don't know if I talked to you in the last, I don't know how long ago, but my late friend B.B. King, we talked about it before he got ill and passed away. I don't know why they quit playing blues, because I thought some of the lyrics in blues, you had to figure out what we meant. B.B. King called it beating around the bush. And when the hip-hoppers came out, I said, no, I got to think of something else, because there's a little more stronger language than the blues guys were. They just told you like it is. And they selling millions of records.
Well, we got to bring the blues back, and maybe it'll start on June 21st at Wolf Trap in Virginia. Let's get another generation to come out and rediscover this beautiful art form. And who better to do it than with Buddy Guy, you know, blues legend, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer. Folks, you don't want to miss this. And you'll be sharing a bill with a fellow Grammy winner, Christone Kingfish Ingram, great on the guitar, and Judith Hill, former backup singer for Prince and Michael Jackson before they passed. That's 3 amazing talents for the price of one.
Well, let's start with Kingfish first. You know, I never played Mississippi that much, and before he came out, I was in Mississippi and I saw this little black guy there with a guitar and asked him could he play, and he came up and I spent my money and got him recorded at first. And Quinn Sullivan, I did the same thing with him, because when I see a young person, because unless you come to one of these shows like at the Wolf Trap, the young people don't know nothing about blues, you know, because when I was coming up, your AM stations played everything, gospel, jazz, and blues. At least some kids like myself heard it. But now if you don't hear it, that's just like, you know, Louisiana's supposed to be noted for good cooking. But you ain't going to know it till you go down and taste it, you know, and that's the same thing as about the blues, you know. You can't, a kid be influenced like me unless he hear it, you know, and that music's been out there before anything else. All this new stuff, rock, hard rock, and soul and stuff like that. When I come up, it was R&B, everything was R&B.
Absolutely. And so you're kind of alluding to it. You were born in Louisiana in 36. Paint a picture of your childhood. I mean, I guess this is what, like Great Depression, even heading into World War II when you're growing up.
When I grew up in Louisiana, you know, I didn't know what running water was until I was 14 years old. And of course, we didn't have no electricity. We had the lamp lights and the wood stoves and the fireplaces, the chimneys and stuff in there. So when I did get a radio, I think my dad got one old battery radio with the antenna on top of the roof, the shotgun house. And that's when I first started hearing the John Lee Hooker and the Lightning Hopkins. But you could go to old juke joint and they had Lightning Hopkins and them records on there. jukebox, and you could put a nickel in, and it would come up and play that play, and that's where I first started hearing my music.
Oh, wow. So it was John Lee Hooker. And thanks for explaining literally the first time you met the blues, to steal a phrase, growing up. That is great.
I was the first child to leave. My mother had a stroke at an early age, and all the people in Louisiana View was grandchildren and uncles and aunties. And, we didn't run to the doctor every time somebody got sick. My mother they had to take off a salt. That was the only thing they say called high blood pressure. Her dad had a stroke. And I really heard that I could come to Chicago and see people like Muddy Waters and Little Walter and them, and there wasn't no cover charge, but you had to be 21, and then you had to buy a drink to go in the building, because beer was 25 cents a bottle, and when Muddy and them played, it was 35 cents. And that was the dime went to Muddy and them, so I told her I wanted to go to Chicago, and I was trying to make her smile. And I said, I'm going to Chicago. I was working at LSU then in Louisiana, in Baton Rouge.
Were you a custodian, right?
Yeah, I was making about, I think it's $28 a week or something like that. But anyway, I heard I could come up here and probably get a job at a college here and make twice as much up here in Chicago as I did in Louisiana. So a friend of mine invited me to come on up, and I caught the train September 25th, 1957, and got into Chicago, and I lied to her before I left. I said, I'm going to Chicago. I'm going to make a little more money. I can send you some money. I'm going to buy a polka dot Cadillac, and I knew I was lying. And she passed away before I could explain to her that I had lied to her, and something come up once and said, man, you lied to your mom about that polka dot.
Oh.
And something crossed my mind. So you should have a polka dot guitar. I got polka dot shirts. I got polka dot sport coats and all that kind of stuff. Now, man, that just to remind me why I lied to her, and that's why the polka dots came up with.
Oh, wow. So that's your penance to your late mom and trying to make it up to her and show how much you love her. And then, so you moved to Chicago and you met Muddy Waters and start recording with him. And I guess you put your first studio album out, I Left My Blues in San Francisco, in 1967. And you start recording with guys like Junior Wells and Memphis Slim there in the 60s and 70s. You're really banging on your craft and learning your craft at a time that, rock music is really taking over mainstream radio. But how important was it for you to sit there and learn your craft of blues, in juxtaposition to that?
Well, I didn't ever think I was good enough to be right speaking to you about blues right now, but all I wanted to do was watch the Wolf, Muddy Waters, and Sonny Boy and them, and all of a sudden they found out I could play a few licks of their music. And you had guitar players, 10 times better than me, but every time they got ready to make play a song behind Muddy or Wolf or Walter, they say, here's my time to explore. So Muddy and them knew that, but they called me. I would go in the corner and say, just tell me what you want me to do. And that's why I got a chance to make a lot of sessions, because I didn't want to run over them. I felt like I was in school. I'm learning a lesson from those guys now, and that's why I got a chance to make records with Little Walter, Wolf, Muddy, and even made a couple of gospel records. You know what really helped the blues with black people? I would say, started when the British started playing blues. Mm-hmm. Do you know that was a television show called Shindig? And I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. And then the Rolling Stone was bigger than Bubblegum, and they were trying to get them to do the television show Shindig, and Mick Jagger said, I'll do it if you let me bring Muddy Waters. And White America said, who in the hell is that? He said, you mean to tell me you don't know who Muddy Waters is? And we named ourselves after his famous record, Rolling Stone. And that's when a lot of black people started being recognized here. I don't know if you heard about. I just saw this a little over a year ago on CNN. I didn't know they had beat up Little Richard for playing for white kids after they found out, because the first time we started playing for white artists was in colleges. Mm. And it's something new to them. I don't know how they kept the blues away from these kids, but when they found out, that Little Richard and James Brown and all of them, and they was going in them colleges playing, and I think a state trooper beat up Little Richard and said that you playing nigger music for these white people.
Man.
See, when you talk to me, if you want history, you can talk to me. I can go back and open up the books on something. See, they didn't let you know that until the British come here and say, you mean to tell me you don't know who Muddy Waters is, who B.B. King, and they would come here and take a tour. And I did it all over here, me and Junior Well with them. They took B.B. King and God knows who else and made them open them shows so America could see where they got this stuff from.
Well, yeah, it's important to educate people where all this stuff comes from. And you yourself, sir, had a big role in educating folks in the 70s and the 80s when you opened a pair of your own Chicago blues clubs. First, the Checkerboard Lounge in the 70s, and then later you opened, it was called Buddy Guy's Legends in the 80s. I think I've even seen clips of you performing with the late, great Stevie Ray Vaughan at your own club. That's special stuff.
Let me take you back. My first blues club was August 5th, 1972. When I opened that first blues club, I had a blues club called Checkerboard, and I had the Blues Brothers, B.B. King, Muddy never did come because he had a problem with his wife, but he finally come after I had the Rolling Stones. Everybody started coming by because I saw the blues club disappearing. And I took my last pen and opened a little blues club, hold about 40 people on 43rd Street in Chicago, and that started. Now, this big club you saw might come years later. See, because I was looking into, like, wait a minute, all these great blues clubs in Chicago is disappearing. And I had a lot of reasons for them to disappear because there used to be no DUI and all that kind of stuff, and we had the stockyard here 24/7. We had a Southside Theater here 24/7, and we used to play at 7 o'clock in the morning, and the house was full because that's the guy who was working what you call the dog shift. That was his time to come out and have a drink and listen to music. So we would start playing at 7 o'clock on Monday morning, call it Blue Monday. And then later on, I think it was 1989 when I opened the one where you talking about Stevie, because when I first opened that, there wasn't no Stevie Ray Vaughan in 1972. It was Muddy Waters, B.B. King, and those Howlin' Wolf and those people like that. Albert King, Little Milton, all that stuff.
Yep.
And then I forget what year Stevie sprung out. It might have been right around that time.
Well, you gave SRV a platform, and rest in peace. But all right, so you open those two clubs, and then you enter the period where you finally start getting some Grammy recognition. I think 15 nominations and 8 wins. And we don't have time to go into all of them, but I'm going to rattle them off real fast for our listeners. So in the 90s, you win 4 for Damn Right I've Got the Blues, Feels Like Rain, Slippin' In, and SRV Shuffle. Also nominated for Live the Real Deal and Heavy Love in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, you win your 5th for Blues Singer. Also nominated for Sweet Tea, Bring 'Em In, and Skin Deep. Not to mention induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2005 by Eric Clapton and B.B. King. How cool was that? In the 2010s, you win 3 more for Living Proof, The Blues is Alive and Well, and Born to Play Guitar, not to mention a Grammy Life Achievement Award. And now in the 2020s, our current decade, you get your latest nomination for The Blues Don't Lie in 2022. And folks, that's multiple decades of Grammy dominance there in the back half of your career here. I interrupt my convo with Buddy Guy to play what fellow blues legend Taj Mahal had to say about him last week. I was just talking to Buddy Guy. He and you started in the 60s, but it took until like the 90s for the Grammys to start honoring you guys. What the hell is with that?
It's Western ignorance.
Perfectly said. What did he mean to blues? You sort of...
Well, he was a young guy.
Yeah.
He was a young guy coming up behind Muddy.
Yeah.
I have the album that it's like Muddy's on the cover, and then there's a little picture of Buddy. Yeah, he came up, and Muddy was the big guy in town, and Muddy brought him in. And there's a great album called Folk Festival of the Blues. It's a live album with Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy, Sonny Boy Williamson. To me, at this point, he's the last guy standing of that older group that cut that first music.
Buddy Guy, you mean?
Oh, yeah. Buddy's the last guy standing.
We now return to my conversation with Buddy Guy. I know we're up against the clock, so let's end here since this is a Wolf Trap show in the D.C. area. This area, nation's capital, has been pretty good to you over the years. You got invited to the White House a couple times, but Bush and Obama administrations, and you received the Kennedy Center honors in 2012. I think that was the year that Hart brought Led Zeppelin to tears, was Stairway to Heaven. But what was it like sitting in that balcony box there, just soaking it all in and seeing some blues greats paying tribute to your legendary career?
Well, I didn't know how the super guitar players out of Europe were saying they had got some with me, so I didn't have no big record like they did. But every time Jeff Beck, the late Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, said, man, we got these licks from you. And I don't know if you know, but the first time I went to England was 1965. And Rod Stewart was my valet and the opening little act for me.
Really?
And I had the Stratocaster and Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page said they didn't know a Strat could play the blues. And they wasn't famous then, and they come to see me and say, I don't know what he is, but whatever that is, they all went out and bought Strats. Because they figured a Strat was back in those days you call the Tennessee and the Texas country and Western music. And they saw me play that guitar, and I think that was Eric told me. I threw it up, and they put a spotlight on me, and it blinded me out, and the guitar passed me by and hit the floor, and I said, oh, shit. I just jumped down on the floor and went to playing, and they thought I did that on purpose.
They thought it was all part of your plan.
Yeah.
That's great.
By the way, I played Wolf Trap. It looked like it was I think I done played maybe 2 or 3 times before now, and it's always a pleasure to come places like that because, you have 9, 10, 7, them kind of aged kids come up, because I have kids come up to me now when we play those things. I'm 7 years old. I never heard these, but I heard what Clapton said, or Jeff Beck, or Jimmy Page said. I said, at least you know my name now through them, not by radio playing my music.
Yeah, you're their favorite musician's favorite musician. That's you in a lot of cases. So that's how they stumble upon you and find your music. Well, we invite them all to come out to see the legendary blues legend, 8-time Grammy-winning Buddy Guy coming to Wolf Trap in Vienna, Virginia on June 21st. You don't want to miss it. Buy a ticket. It's your way to keep the blues alive. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us. You are an absolute legend. This is an honor.
All right, and I want to tell you this, I'm not going to be the best in town, but I'm going to be the best till the best come around.
Perfect place to leave it. Thank you, sir.
All right, have a good one.
Thanks so much for listening to Beyond the Fame with Jason Fraley. Our theme music is Scott Buckley's Clarion. Remember to give us a 5-star rating if you like what you hear. We'll see you next time.